Welcome to Stepping on the Mat podcast, episode 017 with me, Aaron Martinez. Today's guest is no stranger to the wrestling community. He is one of our great media sources here and the founder of IAwrestle, Mr. Tony Hager. Welcome to the show, Tony.
What's up? I love the setup.
Thank you.
This feels good.
Well, I've switched the role on you. You're the person that's usually behind this thing over here, and now I got you sitting across from me, and I get to plug you for questions. So welcome to the show. I'd also like to give a shout out for you for, sponsoring this podcast and being a part of helping this movement to push wrestling and get us into a progressive community where this thing can grow. Because, as I know, creating content is it's a arcade game, coin insert. Yeah. Build content more and more and more. Otherwise, you flush away, right? So
people love wrestling content, right? Especially right now, right? I mean, they can't get enough of it, right? And whether it's short form or long form, and your show gravitated to me of just like being able to sit down and chill and hear the stories behind the wrestlers or coaches or athletes and anything, what you're trying to do here. I love it.
Yeah. So let's just start this thing. I mean, I feel like we could because we've already been hanging out for a little bit. And I feel like we could just be going forever on this thing. So
we have a time limit, or
no, okay. Sir. For you, we have no time limit. We're going to expand time here. Time is irrelevant. So, and what is it like for IAwrestle currently right now as the beginning of the high school wrestling season and college season begins?
I mean, as far as kind of the hardest part is just getting everyone back in the swing of doing rankings, doing coverage, scheduling out content, finding storylines, and there's so much going on that people don't really see as far as like organizing it all, and I like to call it like organized chaos, because I'm always feeling like you have to move on to the next thing before you even put out that content. You got to be thinking 3 days ahead of, because we're promoting. We're not only streaming events, like we're trying to cover the events that we can't be at too. So just organized chaos of everything, everybody that we have from Eastern Iowa, Western Iowa. We've got people all over the state, and to make it mesh well, because a lot of our people aren't paid. They're volunteers. They're here covering the sport, and they've got families. They got kids that are in wrestling. So for them to find time to make the content is not always easy, and things come up, right? I mean, things come up in my life where they're expecting me to put the content out, and wrestling practice goes an extra hour. So just trying to get in a swing of things. Usually mid-December, like right before Christmas, is when we kind of feel like we can kind of calm down and really get to watch wrestling, because we don't really get to watch wrestling at the end of the day. It's just kind of a hard concept for people to think is. When we're at events, it's content, not actually sitting down and watching a match.
Right. And I want to kind of share something that people may not know about you. You have a location that's downtown.
Yeah. I think a lot of people see the shows or see pictures. It thinks it's in my basement. Like for a long time, like
this one's in the basement.
It was, but like it's all about. That's just what most people think, because that's what most people just do, right? I mean, we have the ability to have a location. The main reason why we do a location downtown or anywhere is just so myself and people that are within IAwrestle can get out of their house, because it's easy to just not get away and make content, or it's just easy to chill and watch YouTube and chill and be with your family. And not that that's bad, but you have to have a place to escape and just be your own person sometimes without the extra noise.
It's important to have a studio. You got to have a place that you can work. The basement's great, but like you got to have, even if it's just a basement that you got to create an environment that you can create successfully. But before we get too deep into IAwrestle, because I have a lot of questions for you, and I hope it's questions that our fans want to know about IAwrestle as well. But I want to kind of hear your origin story of wrestling. You're not just a content creator. You have been very successful in wrestling yourself. So maybe give us a little background story about your wrestling path.
Yeah, my dad didn't wrestle. My mom, she had a brother that wrestled in high school, but didn't have a ton of success in Perry. Dad grew up in Ogden, where I'm from, And the story that I was told is I came home with a flyer, from the school.
Same.
Which I think people are getting away from is handing that flyer out at schools. The schools allowing people to hand out the flyers, but started wrestling really young. I believe it was like kindergarten, and I did wrestle quite a bit actually. Starting for me, it seems like a lot, like 20 to 30 matches a year. Starting out, small tournaments, and had success at the AAU state level. That was really all that we did. We didn't do freestyle stuff in the summer as a young kid. Now it's you're year round when you're in first grade, second grade, third grade. It's pretty crazy. So had success at the AAU level. Didn't even know that was a cool thing, right? I think is it wasn't ever a pressure, but growing up in Ogden, wrestling, we had guys like Jason Keenan. Jesse Sundell was about 4 years older than me. That we had people to aspire to be. Yeah. So the club always had people above us that our dads could say, "Hey, you could be that. You could be that kid sometime." And it was a sense of community too. Of Ogden, Iowa, a 1A school is going to go to Waterloo and wrestle in a tournament, and we're going to win it as a kid in just a kids club, little kids club. So going up through the ranks at AAU, had some success. Always the smallest kid. Learned a lot about how I coach my kid now. High school level, we had never gotten to as a team. Like we won tournaments, but we could never get over that edge as far as the tournament team, the state tournament. It was all individual based. We were our only state champions up until a couple years ago were 4-timers. So there was never like that one-off state champ. So Ogden has always been known to be like a decent team, but never had been that team that could get a state title. So I was a part of a lot of different teams where individual, but then towards the end, we were leaning towards trying to get a team trophy. So the switch kind of changed to being all about me, myself, to the team. So I was a 4-time state qualifier, 3-time medalist, 2-time runner-up.
I know we were just watching part of the documentary. I was like, you feel it, right?
Yeah. No, it's every year it's tough to go to the state tournament and see kids that don't get what they wanted, because I felt that, right?
Yeah. And besides, going from the barn to Wells Fargo as a change, what have you seen changes in the difference of like the state tournament?
The change for the fans is not as intimate. The community aspect has not been as intimate. The viewing, the being able to watch the matches that you want to watch is way better, but you don't get the same community aspect of we're all going to sit in this spot, and that just might be just the times have changed from year 2000 to 2023 now, right? Where we're a little bit more focused on ourselves sometimes. That part I really, really miss about the state tournament. We see it with the 1A schools, but 3A, you don't get that feeling that you've got 100 people in one setting, one section.
Do you think that because a lot of that 3A schools a lot of them are metro-based schools?
Yeah, and there's so many kids in the schools that there's not as much. You can't. I think those parents, maybe you just got a lot going on in the city, right? And it's hard to have that one-on-one interaction with, the teammates' parents. You're so focused on worrying about your own son. And living in Johnson, I just felt that, and nothing against the metro teams. It's just there's just a lot going on, and I don't think that's a fault of their own. It's just what and there's also aspect of it was in vets for so long, so you know exactly where to sit.
Yeah.
Where at Wells Fargo, it's like we haven't really gotten into those vibes of like, Norwalk is going to be sitting in section 212. Everyone go to that and got to get there as fast as possible. So it has been getting better, but it's not to that point to where it was at vets, where we know exactly who's set and where.
Every
time.
Yeah. And you mentioned when you were a kid, you know, you got the flyer at school. And that's funny because that's how I got into wrestling as well, a flyer. And I was a Southeast Poke kid before Southeast Poke even had a youth program. And I got a flyer from their little tournament camp that they had. There was like 4 of us that showed up, and I happened to be one of the kids that was lucky enough to be introduced to wrestling by a flyer. So yeah, all these years later, here we go, right?
I mean, how many kids out there are that person that didn't think they wanted to be out for wrestling, and their parents didn't think that they would be wrestlers, and now it's completely shaped their life.
For sure, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, you're both of us.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what we do for a living. You're in the jiu-jitsu world. I'm in the wrestling world. Without that flyer, who knows what the hell we could be doing?
Yeah, right.
Crazy. I'm assuming that it's just because there's so many other opportunities for different activities. So if the school allows the flyers to go out for wrestling, well, there's a club for taekwondo or basketball or ping pong. Like, well, then we want our flyers to get sent out to everybody, right? So now there's just so many of those things out there for kids to do that I'm guessing the schools are just like, if we do it for one, we got to do it for all. And that sucks, but that's reality. So the small schools aren't having that issue. Big schools, definitely, it's like a no-no. Like even like Little League baseball, like you can't even send an email to all the students says, hey, Little League's coming up. Come out for Little League baseball. You can't even do that.
When and how did the vision of IAwrestle begin for you?
It happened probably right out of college. I went into painting. I just had to make money to pay my student loans. So I went back home, started painting. Couldn't get a job at what I went to school for, which was graphic design. Then my old friend reached out to me and goes, hey, I think you'd be good at mortgage loan office, being a mortgage broker. Like a lot of people did, right?
Yeah, that's it. Graphic designer, man, that's perfect for you.
Yeah. So like you're just good at talking to people and so I just dove right into that because I was not painting. I wasn't out in 100-degree weather. And at first it was really fun. I'm getting, $4,000 checks. And eventually, I was, got up to like 6 figures. And it ended up not, it just being about the money. And I lost kind of who I was, right? So I started, for some reason, just started getting to watch back wrestling, like watching the Iowa Hawkeyes because I was a Hawkeye fan. I just, as soon as I graduated Simpson College, I just didn't even watch wrestling. Like, even in college, I wouldn't watch really any wrestling. I didn't go to the NCAA championships. Once wrestling was over, I was just done, ready to party. So I think I just eventually just decided that we need to cover, I want to get back into wrestling, cover the Hawkeyes, and then it led into, man, I could bring my graphic design knowledge into the branding of the sport because no one else is really doing it well on social media. And somehow I had a spark in my mind that social media was going to be what it is. Not today, right? I didn't have that vision, but people were connecting on social media. And I thought I could cover the sport differently. It was a aha moment. Like my buddy Kurt Crittenden, he's a former wrestler as well, and we're at the Big Ten championships, and he goes, "Hey, you should get on Twitter and start talking about what you think about wrestling." And then he's like, "Follow to be followed." And I started following like wrestling people, and then people started following me back and wanting my content, my feedback, and then it just it just like people want to hear what I want to say about wrestling. Like I can do what I love, and so it got to be a thing where like I could make money with the mortgage side, and then I could do wrestling on the side, and people would love me more for the wrestling versus like what paid the bills.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of kept on going. And the bigger my brand got, then we decided to do IAwrestle.
Yeah. I mean, there's another similarity we have. We're both graphic designers, right? Both kind of tried the firm life with it, and see where we could fit into, the marketing world with it. And then it led us back into what our love is, with grappling and jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And then those skills come back into play, So yeah, I'm glad you took that route.
Yeah, it just kind of, I don't want to say, we had an idea. We were covering wrestling before IAwrestle was even a thing.
Right.
And it just, the story is just kind of funny how it all happened, but the reality is if we don't have the people that want to follow wrestling, then IAwrestle doesn't even happen. You can't make it happen in existence. You got to have people out there that love the sport as much as you do, and clearly that happened in Iowa.
Yeah, and it's always frustrating in the beginning when you're like trying to build content and build viewers. Like, you build something really strong and you want people to see it, right? Mm-hmm. Make a painting, you want people to see it.
Yeah.
Going from like, maybe one or two people in your family watch it and you're thanks for the support, but then what are we at now for as far as I seen you made a post the other day about our the subscribers to the page.
We just hit 75,000 followers on Instagram, and that was a page that we started from the ground up. That started with Nick Ryder, honestly, that he had that photography side of things. He started taking just one-off pictures at the NCAA championships, like from an art perspective.
Yes.
And I was just like, he took a picture of like just something random at the NCAA championships. I was like, man, that's beautiful, right? And that's a unique perspective because everyone's taking pictures of the action, right? And then I was like, put that on Instagram. And then it just kind of led into what it is today. And 75,000 followers.
75,000 in how many years you've been at it?
Instagram, I mean, the IAwrestle's been around for 10 years. Instagram's been around that we've been on it. Honestly, I don't even know the date that we started it, but I would say probably 6-ish years on Instagram, maybe less than that. And that's a different medium than Facebook, than Twitter. They all have different engagements. Yeah, we tested. I basically how we got to 75K wasn't because this bet. I just told everybody on IAwrestle, say, hey, if we get to 75K by the end of 2024, we're going to. I'll take you all to Vegas.
Sweet.
I didn't think that we would get there.
Now everybody's standing in line like, where's my ticket?
It was a
let me get the aisle seat.
It was a lofty goal, but it was something that I knew that we had the creators that would be able to get it done.
Yeah.
So it was like not too lofty, but an attainable goal, I guess. And we got there, and everyone's stoked, and it's not just we're not just posting now we're trying to get more engagement, and the next goal is 100K.
Yeah.
So.
And congratulations on that for one.
Yeah.
And all the people that have been involved in that, even your wife, I'm sure she, outside of getting credit for things, she's doing a lot of work with you and having to sit through the process with you as well.
Well, that's really changed. That's changed in the last probably 3 years, really, with her. She didn't go to events. She didn't follow any of the wrestlers. She now takes over our gear. And once she it was tough because I'm gone for 3 nights a week streaming events, and she always like, well, it got to the point where how much are you making on a weekend? And sometimes I didn't have the heart to be like, it actually cost me money. It cost me to stream in a Battle of Waterloo. It cost me money to stream the Count Swift Classic, and we're making money, but we're not making money at the same time because I'm investing it back into everything. So that was very difficult to be gone. But now she's there. She's at the events, and we're selling gear, and people come up to her and be like, thank you for what you're doing. Really appreciate your husband and your team. And then now I think she just has that feeling of it's bigger than a business. It's bigger than that, and that's hard for people to really see behind the lens of why we do this. It pays the bills, but at the end of the day, this changes people's lives sometimes. Believe it or not, one photo can change a kid's day.
Yeah, one documentary can shift it all.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, that's right.
It's nuts.
So, so what would you say, over all the years you put into this, and all the trials and the different experiences you've had? What would you say is your favorite thing?
Favorite thing that has ever happened to IAwrestle? Wow. I would say, I have a ton of personal moments, but as far as a brand goes, we did Night of Conflict at Carver. Logan Luft. A lot of people know that story. We, presented a check at our event. They raised money for that, and be able to recognize him as an organ donor. That was a pretty cool moment. We've done a lot of stuff with the Logan Luff stuff. I think that was all those little things that we get to do on the side. That is not a result base. I think it's been like the most rewarding things that, I gave a check to a team for $5,000 for a wrestling mat. No one got to see those things, but like that team, they know that I gave them that check.
Yeah, they know where it came from.
And now we're always, now I'm always cheering for them, or they show that support. The public doesn't know, and I'm not going to tell what team that was, but those able to have those moments to give back are pretty cool. Like, we wouldn't have those without IAwrestle. Those clubs, those teams that we've been able to do some of those things for. It doesn't happen often, but when we do them, that's what's rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of the Luft family, I'd really love to have Lily Luft on here. Her names came up several times on the podcast. I'd love to have you on here.
Yeah, I think we could probably make that happen after the season for sure.
Yeah,
she's at Iowa. Impactful ambassador.
She puts out a ton of content too, man. She's on it.
She's an ambassador for the sport, and she's and I haven't asked her this, but I'm guessing just because she shares her life with people, that people follow her, and then they're seeing her and be like, I could be her someday.
Yeah, especially in not to bring up negative things, but like when you lose somebody that's close to you, mm-hmm. People unintentionally keep people in low states, right? Like, they're always like, hey, I know it's coming that time of season again when you lost so and so, right? And like but she's not doing that. She has shifted her momentum and the energy off of a situation that is unfortunate, mm-hmm. And she's doing great with it.
Well, the whole family.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's gravitated me towards that is I'm mad that I didn't know who Logan was personally, but I know who the family is, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that happened to me, I'd be in this room, or, I emotionally, I can't handle those type of situations. So that inspires me. I think it inspires people to see that family be able to get that message out. And that's one person said, like, I'm kind of sick of the Luft family. I'm like, that just drove me, like, those are the type of people that I don't even want to associate with. Like,
yeah.
Because they are out there, and you don't know until you sit down in a table with those type of people of why they do it, of why they're getting this message out there. It's not for their own personal gain. Like, shame on you for talking about people like that. And that's what happens in our sport a lot.
Yeah. And when we were talking about the veteran documentary series that I used to run, and like, that was one of the things, I would meet a lot of mothers to lose their children. And one of those processes would be try to encourage them to do something with the loss, right? Do something with it in a positive way, turn something negative into something positive, right? And something that can grow and influence and change other people's lives off your experience. So, counter to that, your favorite thing, what would you say is your least favorite thing that has happened or been a part of during this process of creating IAwrestle?
The hardest part about getting in the IAwrestle scene was the politics side of things. People that already were loyal to a media group, which I always have respected. Give us a chance to earn your respect of how we cover the sport, how we, rankings. That was hard to break through some of those barriers. As a wrestler, we always feel like we can do it better than the other person.
Sure.
So that's what's hard about our sport too, is everyone thinks that they have a better idea or they can do it better. So and that could be, a lot of people's perspective of why I did it, getting in the sport. That was hard. That was difficult to keep going, right? You see a lot of podcasts and a lot of content creators, like, they have this idea, they get it going, and then maybe that didn't get a lot of follows, or you didn't get a lot of plays. And to keep going because you want to do it it's not easy, and you have to believe in what you're doing, and eventually someone's going to say, buy into what you're doing, which was IAwrestle, and we started having coaches share our content, our rankings, and we to this day we're still trying to kind of fight those barriers of being the media company that people go to. That was the hardest part. There's been lots of things that we've put out that we didn't have ill intent of doing it as far as the content goes, but it affected somebody.
Sure.
It could be, that's what's tough about wrestling is there's a winner and there's a loser.
Yeah, right.
And as it's grown, I've realized like, hey, it's just tough. Like that's just life. Like, sorry, you lost, but that kid won and we have to put that video out because we got it. It's
right.
That's a moment that kid has for eternity, and that's good for him, not good for the other person or girl, right?
Yeah.
So deciding what content we put out is always tough, right?
Yeah.
Because I can picture myself in that situation. I mean, we just put out
on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, we just put a picture out of Miller from Carlisle, and he's like getting choked out a little bit, and he's like looking at the camera, like. And we put it out there, and I didn't think anything of it until his dad like said like, "Well, you don't put yourself in that situation." And I'm sure that he was like, "God damn it, you kind of put me on blast there." But when we posted it, didn't think about that.
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
Hey, that's a cool move, big win for the guy that beat Miller. So we have a lot of those situations where we post stuff and we're just like, God, that sucks,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
We're not going to delete it because that someone had a successful day.
Right. And I'm sure, and Ryan watches the
Yeah.
podcast. I seen him this weekend. So what's up, Ryan? But yeah, I'm sure like if Jackson was in the reverse position and he was like, did you get a picture of it?
Yes.
So it does. Wrestling's hard, man. It is. I mean, I see it in the stands. I see it with families. It's just, it's immersive and it's tough for sure. 100%. And we were kind of talking about what the documentary is like, hey, when we put this out, like our kids from Southeast Polk going to watch it.
One thing that is hard too, like thinking about that is when I first started covering the guys, because girls wasn't a thing, I always saw myself like their struggles or their wins, right? Those moments, and I got close to a lot of the wrestlers, like when they're little, like Brody Teskey, Thompson, all those guys that came up when we were first starting 10 years ago. Like I was cheering for them to have those successes.
Sure.
And now I'm trying to back away from that because I don't want to get emotionally invested with a wrestler. It doesn't mean that I don't care about that person, but as I have to be a fanboy because I love wrestling. But I can't be your friend. I have to be a professional, right? I have to be a professional, which I don't consider myself a professional media member. Like, I mean, I like to have a cocktail or two. Like, I like to tell people how I feel and not be politically correct all the time. But so that was really hard for me to kind of like go to a tournament, interact with kids, but not get emotionally invested.
Yeah,
and that's tough to not be able to like sit down and talk to a kid just about life. And it's not that I don't want to. It's just like I just can't because if they lose or when they go to college, like I try to push that away. I guess. I mean that's just me. Like not being okay.
You got to be neutral.
Yeah, I gotta try to be that, right?
Yeah.
I don't want it to come out in my coverage. Like we get. I'm in Earlham, right? Represent Earlham, up and coming team. Like it's hard for me not to promote that up and coming because it's my company, it's my town. I had the same issue at Johnston, where I want Johnston to be on IAwrestle. So sometimes like I'd pull back like my coverage because I'm emotionally invested in Johnston. But in reality, like Johnston's doing great. Like I should be promoting them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's been a hard part of figuring out, putting my relationships aside to cover the sport the way it should be covered.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. So we talked about favorite thing. We talked about least favorite thing. And now leads me into what are some goals for you from 2 years out all the way up into like 10 years out? What are some goals for IAwrestle that you want to accomplish?
My goal for IAwrestle in the next couple of years is to have consistent content throughout.
You're on it this year.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, it has been a group of a bunch of volunteers, part-time people, to now I have a full-time person that I can rely on if I have other things going on, like a podcast, right? I know that I can rely on someone to be getting content out, right? And I'm not feeling that pressure to what's weird. One thing is a misconception is I'm the one making all the rankings, all the articles. I'm just the one that pushes it out to social media. I'm kind of like a social media manager, and then other people within IAwrestle do that as well. But having Cade Nissen on our team is huge.
Big shout out to Cade.
Yeah, just a daily, just to have someone that I can rely on that gets some stuff done. Rainey Yeager as well, that does some stuff on the side for just a content perspective. So having that consistent content throughout the year is my number one goal. Don't have a set number of posts that we need to have. It's just having consistent content daily and getting to certain goals as far as social media goes, right? The next goal for Instagram is 100,000 or 100,000 people. Is that a year goal? Is that 2 year goal? That's just the next goal. So if we hit that in a month from now, that's what it is. We just continually try to get an attainable goal, but not like a ridiculous goal. My goal is to have people representing IAwrestle brand is that they have a connection when they buy our shirt, buy our hat. They know that they're supporting our mission to cover the sport and my family. Like, you buy a hat, I might make $5 on that hat, and that feeds my family, right? Or that helps me pay taxes on stuff. Like, that's and know when they buy something that it's helping me, a small business. We're not helping a big company. So the gear stuff I love seeing people wear our stuff.
Yeah.
And a misconception is people are like, oh, he's making all this money on this gear. I used to just give it out. Like, like I still lose money on lots of gear just giving it out. I want people to wear it and like be connected to the IAwrestle brand.
Yeah.
So that's a goal. 10-year goal is for us to do what we're doing in IAwrestle in other sports. So
let's go.
In baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Football.
You already got that strong goal for this year.
Now, there's sports just as deep as wrestling that I'm learning, right? That people have the same amount of passion that isn't covered like how we cover wrestling. So why can't we do what we do in wrestling in other sports?
Yeah.
And then eventually that passion will hopefully go over into girls sports. It's not my passion of girls sports. Girls wrestling is because I love wrestling, but I know nothing about girls softball, so I'm not going to go out and cover it. Then it'll be not authentic.
Yeah.
Right? So finding people that are crazy like me that love girls softball or baseball, right? Like I love baseball, but I don't love it enough where I'm going to watch it every day. So finding people like me in all these other sports in 10 years from now, we'll have many IAwrestles in all these sports.
Yeah.
And then, heck, at that point I'll be 50 years old.
Yep.
So then I got to start thinking about
I'll be 90 when you're 50.
I'm 40. I'm going to be 40 this year.
You're going to be 40?
I'm going to be 40 next November.
Is that over a hill? Is that over a hill 40?
That's
or is that 50? I can't remember.
50. I'm going to say 50.
I got Alzheimer's, so
I'm going to say 50. 20 years from now, like 10 years from now, who's the next person that's going to take over IAwrestle? My son?
Yeah.
He's 8. He'll be 18. Like, does he just boom right into IAwrestle and not go to college? I don't know. Maybe your son wants to take over.
Yeah, he's good at
There's going to be
some video
somebody
editing
out there that is crazy enough to do this type of stuff. That's long-term picture. You got to be thinking about who's the next person, because I can't be grinding every weekend like this. I mean, I can't even do it right now, really, and I can.
That's kind of what brought us together too, right?
I want to be with my family on the weekends too, right? But still cover the sport. So I'm just always torn of I got to be here,
balance,
but I got to be with my son that's wrestling on the weekends, right? So that's going to be an interesting next 2 to 5 years of how I balance my life with covering the sport and my family.
Yeah.
One thing that is interesting with IAwrestle is always been gravitated towards somebody that just wants to go do it because they want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm never like, if you give me somebody that wants to cover the sport, they might not be the best graphic designer, the best photographer, the best coverage. And you got someone over here that is really good at graphics, really good at videography, but this person is saying, hey, you got to pay me to go do that. I am always going to gravitate to the person that wants to do it because they are passionate about the sport.
Yeah.
They're most connected to IAwrestle and the brand and us as a family. and not the people that are trying to get a paycheck. And I'm not trying
to but they're out there.
And I'm not trying to say that you're not, like, if you're out there and you're like, I'm not saying that you're not worth it. You're not. Your value is time, and you should be paid for what you're doing. But this sport, the media world, you have got to do it before you get the paper. Before you get the money.
That's right.
Because there's so many people out there that have this idea that they're going to be the next content creator. They're going to be this next person that is going to take over the world. And I love that, right? But if you're saying, hey, I got to get paid before I even do it, those are the people that I don't even want to be associated with, because they never pan out.
Yeah.
They never go above and beyond. And that's maybe that's the old school mentality that my coach Reimers installed in me, growing up on a farm, that you do it before you get paid.
That's right.
And that's where society needs to go.
That and learning how to burn the midnight oil.
Yeah.
Those two combinations are powerful.
Yep. Yeah. So the people that I have in our circle, and the reason why IAwrestle where it's at right now is because people grinded for free because they wanted the sport to go forward. So find those same people to do in the other sports, right? The 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. Finding those people, those are the people that are kicking butt right now.
Yeah.
Not the ones that are getting a paycheck. Those are just a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
And that's what's really special to see.
And they got to have endurance too. You got to have endurance to do that, because people often, what I've found is that, like, they get that compassion fatigue. They can do it for a little bit where they're like, yeah, man, I'll come in and help you out. And then 3 months later, they're like, hey, man, you think I could get some money? And then they want out, because it's just a lot of their time investment that goes in it. They don't have those two abilities. So
I have that too.
Yeah, we all get there.
Right? You're anyone that's. I'm not saying that's wrong for you to have that feeling. Because your time is worth money, right? But there's got to be some. I don't know if it's some people ask me, like, how'd you find that person? And I found them, but they're the ones that went out and did it themselves. Mm-hmm. And whether I was able to get that out of them, to realize, like, do it for the right reasons, and it will pay off in the end. Mm-hmm. It's both of us, right? You have to be the person that goes out and do it.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how I was raised in the wrestling room. I'm not going to be, the coach isn't going to be able to do it for you. Dad's not going to be able to do it. Mom's not going to be able to do it for you. You got to go out there and grind. So wrestling is how I approach my business, my everyday life, really business, and how I interact with people. Like, I'm coaching people that come work for us, that want to be coachable, right? Like, that say, hey, tell me, what did you see? Like, tell me how I can fix these things. I might not even have the answers, but being willing to take criticism and changing the way you're doing things, being coachable in life and business is my number one thing. I'm telling my kids when I'm coaching is, if you're not coachable in a sport, you're not going to be coachable in life.
True that.
It's not just going to get.
True that.
It's not just going to get handed to you. You're not just going to get the CEO job because you went to work 8 to 5. You got to go above and beyond what you're getting paid to do in order to get that job. And I think that we're changing for the worse. So people are like, hey, I deserve this because I put in 40 hours a week, or I put 60 hours a week. I don't know. You're going to get me ranting here for a bit, but that's just, you got to freaking grind.
Yeah. And like you said, those are like, out of when we talk about just wrestling as a sport and things that of value, we talked about value earlier. That's one of those things that you get from the wrestling room that helps you approach life. It's not just the skill or the accolade that you get from it, or the trophy or the place, right? It's the life lessons that it's carrying in, going into your 40s now, right? Mm-hmm. All these years later, that still is a powerful tool for you to attract people, to gain relationships and camaraderie, and make a successful business or pathway, right?
Yep.
So speaking of successful pathways, and your events, you don't just cover media event, you cover as a media event, but you also run events. So you have the Night of Conflict, right? Which is a really cool, exciting event to be a part of. So maybe talk us through a little bit about how you created Night of Conflict, or where that came from, and like kind of the future for that.
Yeah. when it comes to, I guess, my background in graphic design and art, I've always been a believer in art creates art. So seeing other people do this in other sports, Flow Wrestling was doing it at a level of who's number one across the country, and I thought we could do that on a state level. Yeah. And there's the North-South that has been around for years. That's up in Charles City, but that was only seniors. So we wanted to do something preseason, postseason, and we had to find some barriers of how we can get over certain rules with Iowa High School Athletic Association. But the idea of that is to put these kids, not only have great matches, but to put these kids on a pedestal that I feel like they are in Iowa. These kids are rock stars.
Yeah.
So
they are to me.
Let's have the theatrics of a UFC event in wrestling, because you go to a high school gym on a Thursday night, Tuesday night, the schools can only do so much.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to roll the red carpet out. Some schools do for big tournaments, big events, but getting the cool gear, getting shoes, which we did at the beginning, doing some of those cool things that some of these kids don't get that opportunity. Maybe they're a small school and they don't have that opportunity. I think that was a motivating factor, just to be able to bring our own brand to our own event, all IAwrestle on everything. Like, people that talk to me, they make fun of me because I wear IAwrestle stuff everywhere. Like, I want kids wearing our stuff. I want the facility to be wrapped in IAwrestle stuff, because it's impactful. It's a branding. It's a graphic design side of me, I guess. So that's why we started it, to put these kids on a pedestal and then create something that could potentially bring revenue into the company. Because we weren't a company that charged for rankings. We didn't charge for anything. We didn't have any revenue. It was, you came to our website and then we maybe got like a couple cents, like after every 1,000 views we got. So revenue is only $5,000, $10,000 a year. We had to find a way to get money to give back to the rankers, because they're spending so much money on their time. I had people just like, I can't be away from my family. Well, what if I gave you like $1,000 a year, right? Mm-hmm. How do I go find that $1,000, right? Okay, let's put on an event. Let's try to make a couple $1,000 so we could pay for other stuff that we want to do in wrestling. So that's a couple of reasons of why we started doing it, financially and branding and putting the kids on a pedestal. And now it's turned into, where can we put it? I've always not wanted to put it in like a high school gym. Our first event was in Carver Hawkeye Arena. So, daunting task. We had great partners that had a tournament that allowed us to kind of be piggyback on that. So, making these kids outside of their comfort zone of the Wells Fargo Arena is really our biggest stage on the folk style side of things. So giving them something, I just want those kids to have that opportunity to get that cool stuff and be the spotlight, right? The finalists get that, but there's 3 mats at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So one mat, you're the star of the show. 2 weeks leading up to the event, we're putting articles out about you.
And plus, you get crossover matches too.
Yeah,
that aren't going to happen in your normal state tournament, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So also, does IAwrestle have any of their own competitors, or is that something you're looking to in the future to create like sponsored wrestlers, or not sponsored, but maybe like team members of the organization?
So do we have competitors?
Yeah.
Like we have a team that goes out and wrestles other.
Yeah. Is that something that
we've thought about doing it on the youth level, where we, like Virginia Beach duels, or there's these tournaments across the country where dads will just get a team together and they'll go wrestle, right? So is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Like us putting a club team together. Mm-hmm. I would love to do that, but I also don't want to step on the club's toes. So if Immortal, Siebel, Moen, multiple clubs that we have put a team together, I don't want to have to like steal those kids, because I'm going to try. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to get
even if it was like temporary, like for like a tournament or something like that.
If the club coaches are all like, hey, you put these kids in an IAwrestle singlet, we're representing IAwrestle, but Iowa, right? I would love nothing more than
like an
that.
all-star team.
All-star team, absolutely.
Yeah.
From youth to high school, that would be great. But it's that's going to be hard with the club coaches because they've got their set schedule of when they compete, when they practice. So, respecting that and not wanting to step on their toes is. If the coaches came to me and said, "Hey, we could use some funding for this event," I'd be all for it.
One thing I thought would be cool is if we did like their Ultimate Fighter series. We did it through IAwrestle, and we did like a contest, right, where we bring in kids and have them compete, and then we have like the Night of Conflict as the main event.
Got it.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we go through a filming process of showing their kind of their routine of being in that contest.
Got it. So like 4 kids would be wrestling off for 106 pounds.
Yeah.
And we would film it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't that be sweet? And then we bring in the coaches like Moen and Seabolt and those guys to actually coach them in-house to a separate team, like Moen versus Seabolt, and then we bring in the kids, red and blue them.
The hardest part would be figuring out who those 4 are, who those 8 are, because someone's always going to feel slighted, right?
We do tryouts.
Yeah.
Do tryouts. Bring them in for a practice.
I would absolutely love
pick our kids that have the good personalities and good skills and.
Well, like PA Power, they're on Rockfin. MN Wrestle is my company. There's different states that do what we do, right? It would be awesome if IAwrestle could grab kids from these clubs, and then we go wrestle those kids, those states, right, and put them on a. They're doing that with P&L, but it's still just the clubs against the clubs. So if we just brought the whole state together, because I love like the junior duels, the cadet duels that happen in the summer.
Yeah.
But there are those events out there, but it's not like you got to have the best. You have the best kids on at 106, 113. You just don't get that, and creating that is easier said than done. But damn, that would be awesome if we could go state to state throughout the summer and wrestle other states.
Well, it gives other kids options that aren't into freestyle too.
Correct. Yes, and there's definitely a lot of them out there.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids that are scared of that freestyle Greco side of things, and that's okay. Yeah, I never did that.
Yeah.
It wasn't a push for me growing up.
Yeah. So, there's a lot going on, 1A, 2A, 3A, tournaments every weekend, dual meets every week. How do you determine what you're going to go cover?
Primarily now it is based off of what tournaments want us to be at their events for streaming their tournaments on the weekends. We have great partners throughout the season. We sought after, we seek tournaments that we think are going to be the toughest ones. Council Bluff Classic has been one that we have done every year since IAwrestle has been streaming. Battle of Waterloo. We did Donnybrook one year. We'd love to be back at that one. So there's every year we don't know who's going to be wrestling those events, but we know kind of what the big events are. So there's a partnership there with the tournament to see value in IAwrestle coming, and then us to see value in us, setting up all the equipment, streaming it, and hopefully people will tune in to pay-per-view it type deal. So that's how the tournaments work as far as who we're streaming. The duels, this year we've taken a different approach to where we want the fans to kind of engage with us, right? If it's the number 8 team against the number 20 team, and they're all like, hey, come watch our duel. We want your videographer there. And then the number 1 versus number 2 team is like, no one says anything. Like, we're going to go 8 to 20, because that's where people want us to be. So we're really going to try to switch up our coverage to covering the best teams, which is always going to be there. But we got to think about those 8 to 20 teams, 24 teams, and because those are great storylines too.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get out of like, we got to cover the best tournaments, the best kids, the best teams, and cover the state as a whole. That's easier said than done. Being able to go do those things. Council Classic. If that's the tournament to stream this weekend and be at and cover versus, I don't want to put anyone on blast, but another tournament down in Central Iowa. Well, the Johnson tournament's going to be really hard. Good, but another tournament. It's hard to kind of determine where we go, I guess you could say. That's a judgment call on my end as far as what I think is going to be good content versus and it's also relationships too.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I have great relationships. We will stream events that we know is not going to do very well, but I respect those those relationships because they were the ones that gave us our go at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, that's hard to balance that, I guess. The duels were really we're open to anything. If coaches want us there, if fan bases want us there, and we can get there and it makes sense, we will go.
Awesome. And how would anybody get a hold of you if they wanted you to cover the event? Yeah, so how would they go about that?
Yeah, starting this year, we're going to be just putting out a graphic every Tuesday or Monday that says, where should we go this week? And simple thing of last night, or Tuesday, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but Tuesday, I didn't even bring it up. Someone said, hey, you should go to Earlham, because Earlham, Van Meter, West Central Valley. Earlham is an up-and-coming program. Obviously, I can say that because I'm there. But the other two programs, maybe aren't there, right? Now that Earlham's there. So someone suggested that, and that was the only suggestion that we got. So, boom, that's where we're at. So go on social media on those posts and tell 5 of your friends to get on there and comment, hey, come to Norwalk.
Yeah,
hey,
overload it.
Just
do the voting.
Just bombard it, with where we should go. And that's that's what Cade did with football and baseball. Hey, what game should we cover this Friday? And Creston would be like, come to Creston. We'd have 20 kids going to Creston. Well, we're going to go there. Right? Yeah. Might not be the best game, but that's where people are engaging with our content. We should engage with them more because they're wanting us to cover them. We don't want to be somewhere where somebody doesn't want us to be. And that's what's kind of frustrating for us is people are taking it for granted sometimes of where we should be going. If we're not welcome somewhere, or people are like, we don't care if they're really here or not.
Yeah.
But if a program that would really love us to be there, I'm going to tell we're going there.
Yeah, 100%.
That's changing. That's going to change this year. I don't care if you have 10 ranked wrestlers. If this program says, Tony, we want you to come, if I don't have prior obligations, we're going.
Yeah.
So that's changing this year.
Yeah, for sure. So I encourage everybody out there that is watching the podcast and that follows IAwrestle and to engage. As artists, we never really run out of ideas, but we do hit those points where we battle with the feeling of how we make people happy, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's our goal. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it because we want to make other people happy. But that does take you engaging back with us. So, if you're out there watching, and Tony makes a post here about get involved in it, don't be mad about that we didn't come to your school or your tournament. Speak up for yourself, advocate for your school and Absolutely. For your team and for the community, and we'll come make it look good. So
Absolutely.
Speaking of things that I like to look good, they got the documentary coming out, Tide 365, as a part of Stepping on the Mat and IAwrestle. You're one of 2 people that have had a peek inside look into the documentary. What are your thoughts without exposing too much about it?
I think that it's a very well put together piece of a long journey for a wrestler of a full year. It's a full year of seeing Ty, and it brings you into the homes, the wrestler, of that emotional side of the sport of wrestling. And it makes you it made me emotional, right? If you see yourself in that person. If you have felt that feeling, right? If your suicide documentary, someone has felt that, right? They're going to be more tied to that. So the documentary on Ty Harper is one that is going to be impactful, that you can take something away from, not just an entertainment perspective of just wanting to follow and, hey, this is a really cool documentary. I got the vibes from the little that I did see of, I can take something emotionally back from that, and that's hard to capture. So kudos to you. But that's how I would explain it to people. Is it takes you through the emotional roller coaster of this sport, from a coaching perspective, from the family perspective, and to the athlete perspective of how hard this sport is, not only physically but emotionally. And that's what I liked about it. Is it's not just about the wins that Ty got, which was obviously Carter Pearson last year at the semifinals, but it takes you through the hope of being a state champion And everyone has that in our sport. You want to be the state champion. And being able to see that side is something we don't get to see very often. Unfortunately for Ty, because, and the family and everything. But that's reality. That is life.
That's what we were talking about earlier. Right? Yeah.
That's life. And there's more people that suffer heartache than there are people that get to suffer success in our sport. Right?
Truth. Yeah.
So that's what I took away from it. I'm excited for it to come out. Obviously, Tyler can only write the story himself, right? You can just tell it. So however that goes to this point is going to be engaging. I'm excited for people to see it.
Me too, man. So engaging an audience is not always the easiest thing in the world to do. So with the 2023-24 season and the rankings, like how is the rankings created? And I guess with the audience, some of the audience that have particular ways of thinking, they want to know why they got to pay for it.
Yeah. That's a very difficult question, I think.
Should I pour another shot?
There's a lot of different ways that we could go with this as far as why you had to pay for rankings. I did a podcast with Kelby Bachman that got into why we had to do that.
And what's the name of his? Is Let's Talk?
Let's Talk Wrestle.
Let's Talk Wrestle.
So the bottom line of why it is important for us to put the rankings behind a paywall is because without it, we don't get to have the coverage that we do throughout the season with videographers, with photographers. The overall coverage that is free would suffer if we would not put that stuff behind a paywall. And we have people that grind behind the scenes doing rankings that I feel deserve to be paid.
Absolutely.
That's it's easy from someone on the outside, and everyone goes, "Well, you should go do the easiest thing for me to say is, well, you just go do your rankings, you post them for free." There's people out there that are doing that right now, and you get what you pay for. And I respect the people that do rankings for us enough to where, could I go find someone that would do the rankings for us for free? Absolutely. Someone would do rankings for us and I wouldn't have to pay them, and I would save money not having to pay them. But is the product going to be as good? Is the rankings going to be as good? Are we going to have as much analysis that we do now in regards to the team rankings or the individual rankings or dual rankings? We wouldn't. We simply wouldn't. Things are different in 2023 than they were in 2019. The predicament was around. We were around. We had free rankings as well. And just life in general isn't the same. It's not the same. We can't survive and spend time not putting that type of stuff behind a paywall. It's not fair. It's the wrestlers should be able to get that stuff, that content for free, I believe. And there's ways that they can do that. We give all our rankings out to local media members, newspapers that are struggling. Newspapers are closing down all the time. They're firing newspaper people. We give those rankings out to media people, and then they can put that in their local newspaper. So if you want to read up on Carroll, you should be pushing your local newspaper to feature our rankings in there. And you're going to get just your team's coverage in there and your rankings. You're not going to get all the rankings for free across the state, but that's where you can go to get your specific coverage if you don't want to support us, which obviously I want you to do. But at the end of the day, like, as a whole, we want all the newspapers in the state of Iowa promoting the sport of wrestling. This idea that we're trying to crush these newspapers is not what we're trying to do. We do it differently because we don't have a newspaper, so there's obviously a different medium there.
Yeah. If
we started putting on a newspaper, then yeah, we would probably be going after the newspapers, but we're not doing that, I guess. So there's a lot of different ways I guess you could go with why we do the rankings behind a paywall. It's not just rankings; it's just our content. Yeah, content in general. We have free content on social media and stuff, but like our analysis is behind a paywall of an Iowa duel or a tournament or whatnot, and that all started when I decided to do this full time. There was 4 of us. that were doing this on the side of our, I was a mortgage broker, right?
Yep,
We were doing
yep.
this on the side and away from our families. And it came to the point where, I was in a wrestling company, and that was my full-time job. I was doing wrestling, but I had to, that was what I was getting paid to do. Well, that job went away, and I had to decide, do I want IAwrestle just to kind of be this small little giant and cover the sport kind of half-ass? In my eyes, I knew we could do better. Or do I say, let's go all in, let's try to make a business out of it, and then ultimately grow the sport, because we're at more events, we have more people that we're paying that deserve to be paid, that wouldn't be doing it if we if they didn't get paid.
Yeah.
So that ultimately just led to where it's at now. So if you got free rankings, you wouldn't be getting sick highlights from these events that we go to. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
100%.
There's a lot of reasons, I guess. But mainly it is to support my family, our company, our employees, and if we do that, ultimately we raise the sport, because they want to do it.
And it goes back into it.
It goes back into it, right?
Doing a night of conflict was free, right?
Yeah.
It was free for you to do, right? It didn't cost you any money to do, right? No, it costs you money.
Yeah.
There's things that, it's in order to make a show, make it great, and that's the way it has to be.
So we do dual team rankings, right? And the argument that a lot of people have is, well, every sport has free rankings. Well, that's true. So that we have free dual team rankings, just like basketball, football, and other sports. But there's no other sport out there that has 12 ranked wrestlers, 14 different weight classes, 3 different divisions. Someone brought up the fact that they do it in cross country, free rankings, but we're talking about a time sport. I don't want to take anywhere cross country. My wife did ran cross country in college, so I don't want her to on my ass. But they're 2 different, completely sports as far as how you do rankings.
Right.
This is 1-on-1, 1 winner, 1 loser. It's a time sport. And I guess I don't want to get in that argument of what rankings are harder, but unless you have you have the blinders on to think that rankings are the same from cross country to wrestling.
Right.
Sorry, but that's just the reality.
Yeah.
Like football. Okay, we do baseball. We have free team rankings, but we have individual position rankings.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 5 of the top first basemen in the state in Class 1A. Like, that takes time to decide.
Oh,
what
yeah.
that could
And you
be.
got to know them, too.
So
You just can't just make a, uneducated choice about who you're going to put in, because people take that stuff personal, right? People are actually looking into it. That's why they're seeking it.
You have a high batting average, but you suck at fielding. You're not all around the best first baseman in the state. So that takes time for those guys to sit down and figure out who the best first baseman is.
Absolutely.
The team rankings maybe might be a little bit easier, but you get what you pay for, and that's what's frustrating. Either you want to help, either you want the rankings, you desire. You said something like you desire what you, so why not pay for it, right?
Yeah.
I desire great whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay great whiskey versus, well, I could pay $5 for crap whiskey and still get drunk or get a buzz, but I desire the good stuff because it tastes good and it's higher quality.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm comparing whiskey to rankings, but
it's a great comparison.
I guess
I would never argue with you on that
right?
one.
You want to pay for a $60 steak from 801 or a $10 steak from the bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry.
So we got those rankings. So I want to ask you personally, you got any predictions on teams this year and individuals that you're looking at? You're like, man, I think I'm looking forward and excited to see this happen.
So I would say I'm the most connected to Class 3A out of all the classes, even though I'm at a 1A school. Don Bosco, starting at Don Bosco is they just have a really good team. I just don't see how anyone can contend with them. They've got some great freshmen coming in. 2A, Osage is going to be really great. 3A is where there's a little bit of great parity right now. I mean, like Waverly Shell Rock, I think is ranked like 5th and they've been fighting, every year with Southeast Polk. Now we've got Bettendorf in there. Their kids club has just gone, and now they're in the mix.
Yeah.
And they were, Freddie Stroker days, like they were the team to beat. So, I still think Southeast Polk is going to be the team to beat. They've got just an overall bottom to top lineup that is going to be hard to beat. And again, the duels are completely different than tournament team rankings. So Bettendorf could be a better tournament team. Southeast Polk might be a better dual team. I think it's too early to really make those predictions because it's really, really close. Bettendorf is going to be really good. They're going to be hard to beat at the individual state tournament.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of kids that could be on the stand. And Southeast Polk is really young, too. They have Slade. Slade is their senior, and the rest of them are
underclassmen.
Yeah, underclassmen, right? So then you got
and we'll see them this weekend here in Norwalk.
Johnson,
or this week.
Linmar. Norwalk's got some individuals there, right, too. So 3A is in the Metro. That tournament at Johnson is going to be a mini state tournament.
Yeah, I'll be filming that this week.
8 of the top 10 ranked teams are at Johnson this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of those matches. And if I didn't have the rankings, I wouldn't be able to know who to look for, right?
Yeah.
So, and look for those key matches. So, looking forward to that this weekend, and also seeing Southeast Polk on Thursday, and a double duel with, I think they're with Oskaloosa and Norwalk. So, another one of my favorite topics in the world is shoes. I love shoes. You're a wrestling shoe fan.
I'm borderline weirdo. Like
I'll take that.
Yeah, people have Jordan, they have J's, and I've got wrestling shoes, and I collect them and resell some of them, and to me they have stories.
Yeah,
I buy brand new shoes for resale value, just like the Jordan market, probably. But I buy used shoes too, the really like the old ones because you just can't find them new really. But they all have kind of stories. But yeah, I've got a pretty sick shoe collection.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, you've got
a couple pairs in
here.
Yeah, I was out filming with Tyler, and he showed me his shoe collection. He's kind of taken after you in that area. So, and he happened to pull out a pair of shoes. It was the exact same pair. He found them at Play It Again Sports. Old vintage pair of shoes are the shoes that I wore when I was in high school.
What are they? Do you know the name of them?
I don't remember the name of them. I'll have to clip back.
You got them at Play It Again?
He got them at Play It Again.
You're going to have to show me what those
96.
Okay.
Maybe 96.
Yeah.
So.
Should be some Nikes.
Yep. Nikes. Yep. All black.
Blue sole?
Black. No, not a blue sole.
Okay. I gotta see them.
They're all black.
Yeah. There is a Instagram following. It used to be the Flecker following that they used to call it. Now it's Instagram of pretty avid collectors. I mean, we're talking people that have $20,000 shoe collections, wrestling shoes, used in practice shoes, like smell, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely a thing.
That's why I got those from you. Those are the first pair I asked from you because there was a kid that I wrestled with in school. He had those shoes, and I just thought he was the coolest kid. He was like, he had all the skills, and he looked cool when he was out there. And I was like, that's the kid I want to be like. And he had those shoes. So
yeah, it's a culture behind the scenes of that kids right now don't understand. I didn't understand when I was in high school. Otherwise, I'd have my shoes that I wore in high school. But some of these shoes can be worth anywhere from $600 to $3,000. I've got a pair of shoes that's worth $4,000.
Yeah, I seen them. I get to touch them.
It's a thing that people don't realize until you know that they're worth something. So you're like hunting in your, like I tell people, they see my shoe collection, like, well, I've got that pair. I'm like, dude, that's like a $600 pair of shoes. You should sell them or keep them, right?
And that's one thing I love to do too. Is like I kind of always wanted to do is like I see people that do the what do you call it, like reviews, right?
Shoe reviews.
I'd love to have a shoe company, Nike, somebody send me some shoes and let me wear them, and I love doing that stuff. So yeah, that'd be something maybe we could think about for a different time.
I mean, there's people that need to know.
It grows the culture too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Every shoe has a different fit.
Yeah,
Nikes have a different fit than
especially for people like me that have really wide feet.
Yeah, so Adidas,
Adidas, yep.
Asics. Yeah. Nike's more tight. Yeah. We need that, right? We need it.
So let's go. Let's go. Let's get those companies over here, Tony. Let's go. So as sports grow, we kind of had this conversation earlier about like wrestling is growing, but there's parts of it's dying, right? And we've seen that a couple of years back too, as some of the, trying to switch up the uniforms and stuff like that. Do you ever see yourself crossing over into like jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, like IAwrestle, kind of move and shift in that area with those two disciplines?
There, as I kind of dive into a little bit more on the social media side of seeing the jiu-jitsu world, MMA, it's coming head to head as really the UFC gets bigger. I don't think the jiu-jitsu side is something that wrestlers are thinking about because it is a different discipline. And when you're rolling around with someone that has that jiu-jitsu background, you're just like in a different world.
Yeah,
like you don't know what's going on. So I definitely think there's a time, like, how we have folk style and we have freestyle. There definitely should be kind of an area of your repertoire that where you're rolling around a little bit, and because you can figure out how to scramble a little bit, you can figure out how to get off your back, you can use your hips a little bit better. Definitely think there's an opportunity for wrestlers to get out there and do that type of stuff. I just don't know if they know. That they know that gyms are out there like Pinnacle, right? Mm-hmm. That they're welcome.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or they feel like they're going to go into a jiu-jitsu gym and they're going to get punched. Right?
Right,
like,
right.
It's an MMA. Like that's what people see. They see fighting. But that's not reality. There are gyms that's what they do, right? But
mm-hmm.
that is they consider it art. It's called mixed martial arts, right? It's a feel thing. Just like some people look at like Greco and folk style and they see art when they watch wrestling. They believe it is an art, which it is, but not everybody has that perspective, I guess. So I'd love to see that crossover a little bit more. I thought that maybe we were going to get a little bit of a push when Spencer Lee was in the limelight, and he has a background. His mom has a background.
In judo. I think her background's in judo, right?
Yeah. So I thought we maybe get some more of those opportunities. I'd like to see like the kids tournaments where they're like maybe on day one there's a judo tournament and then there's a wrestling tournament the next day.
Yeah.
But that's like so far-fetched for high school coaches. They wouldn't know where to start, right? So jiu-jitsu companies, brands need to go, hey, we would love to co-host an event with you or something. Like,
I think that's the best way to start.
We'll go after you guys. And maybe someone's like, we should try it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's tons of people that do what you do, right? There's tons of people that do this. There's no sense of like just exposing people to it.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of crossover there, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
So the more that it can get out there, and maybe like high-end wrestlers are dabbling in it a little bit, and you can see it and you can feel it, and you're like, I could probably do that.
Yeah.
That looks pretty cool. I can do wrestling and do a different kind of style of wrestling, but not get punched. All right, I'm in.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's one of the things I see, because I do get a lot of wrestlers in. And I think that's what gets the hook on them, is that they go from the wrestling component and now they're like, I can finish somebody. Mm-hmm. I can like put an end to it. And I think that's what attracts the wrestlers that I get into the gym, is it's no longer like, hey, I lost by 2 or 3 points when I was in this position where I had their back. And they're like, now I can like drop my boots in, I can get my hooks in, and I can like strangulate them, right? And then end the fight.
Show them out. The tournaments are ran the exact same way as wrestling.
Same.
There's brackets.
Yep.
There's a clock.
Yep.
It's the exact same clock.
There's points. There's rules.
Smooth comp is, people in the wrestling world don't like smooth comp, but that is the track wrestling.
That's the track wrestling, yeah.
That's the track wrestling of that sport. So it would be, the hardest part is just getting someone there. Yeah. Once they get there, then I do see, it catching on, especially if you can like relate it into folk style wrestling or freestyle. Or,
And there's two schools that I know of that are around our area that do both. Like Perselli Percelli has kids youth wrestling team, but he also has jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. And my gym is the same, right? I have a wrestling club, but I also have jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. So a couple schools doing it. We'll see how it grows in the next couple of years, and I would love to combine that with you and do an event where we can get both featured.
Or even do like a camp. They used to have like a small little camp before a tournament, like a beginner's tournament.
Yeah, like a seminar. Yeah.
You bring in Tom Brands and he would do 30 minutes of moves, and then the tournament would start. You could do that, maybe you reach out to a tournament and say, hey, I'd love to be able to do a 30-minute seminar on these. It's free. Show up, and hopefully they, would come to your club, right? Type
yeah,
deal.
yeah.
You got to start somewhere. That could be maybe something you could do.
And what would you say, out of all your experiences with wrestling, and we know that there's tons of life value lessons and things that go along with that, but what would you say like your overall best thing that ever came out of wrestling for you?
Relationships. My best friends are the ones that beat me up. They're the ones that you grind with, and you learn a lot about human beings, and that you can be pushed, to the brink and still be their friends. Relationships has definitely been the thing that's probably been the most brought back into my life.
Gotcha.
Coaching my kids.
Yeah.
What people gave me, get back.
It's a full circle.
Yeah. It's you don't think about it when you're doing it, right? Like when you're little and you're here, it's hard to like, hey, these are going to be your lessons that you learn. Like these are things you're going to carry your whole life, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be grateful for those things like after the fact.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
trying to get people now like to realize like those moments don't last, forever. So living in that moment, and that's what's cool about what we do is we can kind of capture those things, right? Like
Yeah.
you get
100%.
to capture those things. So like I can't go back and look at my struggles through someone that was covering it, right? I carry it deep and it comes out and stuff like this. But the sport is just nothing. There's nothing like it, and that's why people still coach. Like that's why you have the coaches that are living vicariously through their children or through other kids, right? Mm-hmm. That's just like they're obsessed with it. And then you have people that just straight up are trying to give back and like want them to feel those moments of success and failure, because you get to be our age, and things that are big for other people, like failures maybe, aren't as big for us. We have to we just take it differently, right? We can grind through those. It's really not that big a deal. And the successes too aren't as big a deal as you really think they are too, right? Like it's kind of interesting. Like the people that have had the most success in our sport don't realize that they had there's so many people down here that wish they had what that was, right? So,
Yeah.
And they don't know what they have until they fall down, which happens, in life, right? So it's like, there's people down here that are so like me. Like I would love to have a gold medal, but without that, without that pain that I'm feeling now, that's like, I don't get to have that of what pushes me to cover the sport on the daily. And then every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm going and teaching 8-year-olds how to fight through moves that they are like, what are you doing, coach? Like, you tell me you gotta put my head in this kid's hip and it hurts when my head hits. Well, you gotta fight through that, right? And I wouldn't have ever had that without my struggles through the sport. So there's just so many. It's like so cliche. Like everyone's like, oh, Once you wrestle, everything else in life is easy. But it's really legit. Like,
Yeah.
It's legit. Anybody that has been in a combat sport or been
And
through a
life's not
sport-
easy. Life's not easy, but life becomes easier to handle hard situations by embracing the process.
Correct. Yeah, and too many people are trying to get away from that. Like they're trying to get away from the suck.
Yeah.
Instead of embracing the suck.
Easy route.
Yeah. I heard a coach say like and I've really kind of embraced that this year and through coaching and through business is, the hard way is the easy way. The easy way is the hard way. Which way are you gonna, what way you're gonna do? And as soon as like you can kind of relate to something that you've done in your life, you're like, I kind of just took the easy way. You realize that like you didn't get what you wanted because you took it the easy way out. The ones that you like struggled and you grinding through, and you got to where you wanted to be in business or whatever it may, like that's you took the hard way.
Yeah.
Like getting handed to you is just not what life's about.
Yeah.
So circling back to your question is you have to do things the hard way, and that's what wrestling teaches you to do. So the easy way is to quit. What are you going to do when you have a job? When things your coach or your boss tells you to do something that you don't want to do, are you going to just say, yeah, screw this job, I want to go to the next job, the one that's going to just get me through it? Or are you the one that's going to grind through it because that's what my boss asked me to do? That's what my coach, So I try to approach people around me too, like as much as I can, as much as I can see them face to face, and we talk about what we're going to do in the wrestling world and business. Is I like to coach people and be coached too. Still to this day, Hey Tony, you should do it this way. Okay, why? Like tell me why. Why embrace that, right? So maybe that somebody didn't have my background of those struggles. Now I get to pass that on to somebody that maybe didn't even wrestle. Like,
yeah.
Hey, you did a video that you spent a ton of time on and someone didn't like it. Okay, well, what are you going to do to fix it? Are you going to just do it the same way that you did last time? Or are you going to take maybe a little bit more time and figure it out to where now maybe they like it? At the end of the day, it's your art, right? But like that's just one example of like, if you don't like what people think about you or what you're putting out, then you're either going to say, yeah, I like it, or you're going to figure out how to make it better. Because in reality, it is not good because we get just so in our bubble. If we want our way, we think this is good. Being coachable is so important.
Yeah.
So,
and
you got me.
When when I left the military, a lot of vets struggle. There's a lot of struggle for like culturally fitting in and dealing with trauma and combat trauma. It led me back into my grappling, right? It was already there. I was already doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling still. But it was the closest thing I had to that camaraderie, hard work, discipline, value, respect, loyalty, honor, integrity, personal courage. Wrestling is one of the things that gives that back, and it teaches young people early to get those lessons before they approach the adult life. And I got a lot of respect for wrestling. I got a lot of respect for you, and I'm a fan just like you are. So young people, when you see me at the tournaments, you see Tony at the tournaments, know that we're there because we love you and that we are encouraging you. We're doing it because we're trying to encourage the sport because we know the value that it gets in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's touche there.
Tony Hager, thanks for coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me. It was a good little whiskey too, and talking about the sport I love and the people that get to see this side. I think of your side too of going to these events, and yeah, I'm there for a job, but at the end of the day, like there's a deeper reason that has gotten me to this point to be able to actually like benefit from it financially. We're not talking about earth-shattering money, but like,
yeah,
it's you can combine the two, and that's hard to get in life, is to get your job and be able to live and be happy.
Yeah, and be satisfied. Yeah,
be satisfied. I'm never satisfied. I'm never gonna be satisfied ever. But until our sport is popular than basketball. But keep.
Well, it's not gonna. You're not gonna be able to do it on your own.
Stepping on the mat. This is where it's at right there. Boom. You guys, how many episodes?
We're on 17 now.
17.
You're number 17, which is great because 7 is one of my numbers. So
17 on roulette, or
yeah, let's go. Let's
black.
go.
17 black.
17 on black. Let's roll.
Right. Cheers.
Cheers. Salud. I'll see you soon. And everybody else pay attention to what we got coming out this week. We're going to be in a lot of different places covering different events. So if you see us when we're out there, come up and shake our hands, get to know us a little bit. We would love to continue to grow our story. We're always looking for new stories and new content. So come up and say hi and show your support. Check out IAwrestle. You want to give a couple your handles here?
Yeah, at IAwrestle is on all our social medias. That's the easiest way to follow us, and we're really trying to pump up our YouTube a little bit more for those people that are wanting the free content, because we live in a time where you can't subscribe, right? You can't subscribe financially, but if you subscribe to the YouTube to get free content like this podcast right here, that's huge. If you're watching this, that you got this from just someone showed it to you, like just hit the subscribe button, and you might see another video of stepping on the mat or a highlight video from an event. Those likes and shares are almost just as valuable as the dollar figure of subscribing to Rockfin. So we're going to have a ton of content on the free side and the paywall side this year at IAwrestle on all social medias. I appreciate it.
Boom. Tony Hager, thanks for coming in.